All right, guys, so the first routine we're going to look at says, okay, don't feature my username, you got it. So my routine of 30 minutes of length workout 1 month, I do extending the next month, and I hang swap every month. So starting off guys, you know I'm pretty simplistic, okay? And so first of all, if it works for you, then who am I to try to tell you to do something otherwise? But in my opinion, time under tension is time under tension when it comes to length work specifically. So I don't see the merit in switching between like hanging, extending, and manual stretches. I have people that try to kind of complicate things, in my opinion, all the time. It's like, Hink, I'm going to do 30 minutes of manual stretches and then I'm going to use an extender for 30 minutes. And it's like, well, why not just use an extender for an hour? So anyways, if you feel like it's helpful for you to swap between the two, then more power to you. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just like to keep things simple myself. But he says, after length, I pump for either 3 by 5 minutes or 2 by 8, starting at 5 to 6 inches of mercury, then 7 to 8, then finally with 10 to 15. If you're starting at 5 to 6 inches of mercury, I think that's great for like a warm-up set. I think it's perfect for that. But when you're talking about doing working sets, I don't think you need to go that high, but I think it needs to be closer to somewhere between 8 to at most 12. I would start with one warm-up set of 5 to 6, and then I would maybe do that for 5 minutes, 5 to 6 inches of mercury, that is. And then I would just do 3 working sets of 5 minutes, somewhere between the 8 to 12 range as you can tolerate. I don't think you should ever exceed, certainly not 14 inches of mercury. I think you're absolutely getting to dangerous levels there. So I definitely don't like the fact that you were going to 10 inches of mercury. It says, I try to do daily. I want to add an ADS for work after workout. Would like to add a heating pad for pumping and recovery. And so I do think that there is some merit to using an ADS, also known as an all-day stretcher, because I do think when it comes specifically to length work, I really do feel that more is more. As long as you're not causing injury, and as long as you're not causing too much damage to the tissue, you're not having any decreased erection quality, then I do think more time translates to more gains faster. Now, when it comes to a heating pad, so if you haven't seen my video on heat, you should check that out. I do think that there's a merit for heating pad, but specifically in the warming up section. If you're using a heating pad with pumping, what that's going to do is that's going to increase the vascular flow, and you're going to increase your risk of edema and even increase the risk of a blister if you're using it the entire time. And so yes, if you put on a heating pad, you might pack the tube faster, which packing the tube is something that we'll have to do a whole nother video on. Outside of that, for a warm-up or for warming up before you do length work, I don't think there's much merit in using a heating pad. So that's just my take. Hey guys, it's Hink here. And so if you haven't figured out, today we're going to be doing a routine review video. It's been a while since I've done one of these. So if you appreciate these videos, you like these form of videos, please leave a big thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you are not subscribed. I really appreciate you all. But let's just get right into the next routine to review. All right, so we got my guy Green Panda here. He says, hey, I try to squeeze my routine in 1 hour and would love to hear what you think about it. I think 1 hour is plenty of time per day to dedicate to PE. There's too much to life. There's too much to just do in the world and other ways to maximize yourself to spend more than an active hour doing PE. Now, if you're doing something like using an all-day stretcher or even if you're working from home and you can throw on an extender device and you can still do everything you need to do while doing PE, that's great. But otherwise, I think 1 hour of active time per day is plenty. Additionally, would be interested if you think this routine could help me get rid of my congenital left-sided curve. So there's plenty of data showing that actually when you use, the data is for extenders, but there's actually some data for pumping as well, that using extenders or pumps are going to actually decrease your curve. So probably it will decrease your congenital curve to the left, depending on how it's curved. If it's just kind of hooked to the left, then definitely. But if your D kind of, because of maybe the ligaments, one side is tighter than the other and it kind of bends to the left or kind of curves to the left that way, then it might not help as much with that. So the routine is Sunday through Friday. So I'm assuming that means Saturday's off. You know, I'm not the sharpest tack in the box, but yeah, that's an interesting, that's an interesting way of saying that. But he says 3 sets of 15 minutes, vacuum extending at 8 pounds with 30 seconds out of tension in between. I really like that. I think 15 minutes is enough of a burst of tension where you're going to get a good stretch in there. It's going to extend the tissue. I think the weight is great. Depending on your tolerance, I think somewhere between basically 2.5 pounds and maybe 10 pounds is all most people need, in my personal opinion. Now, there is a merit to some of these high tension extenders as well. For most people, you just need enough tension to get a good stretch. And I like the fact that he's taking breaks every 15 minutes to do things like assess for blisters and just make sure that there's no other injuries that are occurring. Next, he says 5 by 2 minute interval vacuum pumping at 10 inches of mercury. And so that's a total set time or total pump time of 10 minutes. I don't think that's enough. I mean, if I were you, I would try to get somewhere at least around 20 minutes of pumping in per day. I personally like doing the warm-up set of relatively low pressure, somewhere around 5 to 6 inches of mercury, and then do your working sets. 10 inch, I think that's a great pressure to pump at, okay? 10, I think, is kind of the sweet spot where you're kind of limiting your side effects. It is a little bit on the higher side depending on which data you look at, but you're not getting into that side where you have higher rates of discoloration and edema. So I think 10 is great. And then he says Saturday rest. And so I think that's a good routine, man. And I think it's perfectly fine to have a rest day in there. Do I think it's necessary? Well, I have at least one, if not two videos where I talk about the role of rest days. It's mostly in the context of length work, but even trials like the P-Long trial published in a urologic journal, they did not have scheduled rest days. It was 7 days a week. And of course, my Hink trial that showed that guys on average with photos that you can verify, you can see for yourself, gained a 1/2 inch in length and 1/4 inch of girth. So if you're interested in checking out the trial, seeing the actual photos, seeing what I talked about, the link is in the description. But overall, I think that's a great routine, man. So I didn't rate the last one. Let me go back up to the last one. So what would I rate that? So the first one, I mean, it was a bit complicated for my liking, but I think it has a good amount of length work in there. I think it's pumping to safe levels. I don't know. I'd probably give that a B. And for this one, I'd probably give it a B- just because I don't think that that's enough pumping time if you're trying to actually gain from pumping. All right, guys, and next we got, please don't feature my username. No problem, bro. So a lot of folks started pinging you directly instead of doing your own research, I guess, on existing articles and posts. And so, yes, that's very true, bro. So I appreciate that you've actually done some research yourself. I also appreciate that this is put in nice, concise bullet points. It's very easy for my little slow reptile brain to follow. But he says 90 to 120 minutes extending sessions at approximately 12 pounds. I think that that's perfect. I mean, I think that that is the ideal amount of time. If I had all the time in the world, I would be doing extending for probably about 2 hours a day for sure. And then he says 5 minutes, 4 sets at 20 minutes, 8 to 12 pounds, starting until stretch slows. Okay, then 10 minutes, 5 sets for about 50 minutes, 12 to 15 to get the tissue fatigue and load. And then 2 20-minute sets, here we go, 20 to 40 minutes of 12 pounds, adjusting to a longer stretch at lower weight for the full lengthwise expansion. So once again, I think that that's fine. To me, that's a bit complicated, especially when you're talking about 5-minute sets. I mean, when I think about using an extender, I think the beauty of it comes in is that you just put on the extender and then you can do whatever you need to do. But if you have a setup where you're having to adjust something or change something every 5 to 10 minutes, it kind of takes away from that. So, I mean, that's fine. But I'm big on simplicity, guys. Like, if you want me to grade your routine very highly, is you're going to be using the right amount of time for length and girth work, and it's going to be a fairly simple routine that you do almost every day or every day. You guys know how I roll at this point. If you don't know how I roll, check out my extender playlist or check out my pumping playlist. And of course, my course is available. If you want me to take you through step-by-step video guides of everything through like assessing your own anatomy, what to do before you get started, post-care, like how to measure, when to measure, what types of things show that you're growing, all of that is in my course as well. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description below. But overall, I think it's fine, especially with the total amount of time. I'm very good with that. So strong work, man, and you're very dedicated, and you've clearly done some research, and so I appreciate that. And so now we're going to move on to his girth regimen. And he says girth, it's 3 hours at low external pressure 3 times a week, experimenting with maintaining longer CC enlargement. So I'm guessing that means you're doing approximately 3 hours at a low pressure pump. I definitely don't like that. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I mean, if you're experimenting, it's your body, your choice, you know, whatever. I'm a clown in a mask. Who listens to me anyways? None of this is medical advice. This is all just for entertainment purposes anyways. But that being said, I don't like that. I mean, yes, you're going to have a much bigger flaccid throughout the day, But you're also going to have a lot of edema or fluid develop during that, I would imagine. Okay, I can't imagine how that wouldn't happen. But that is keeping you in it. That is actually keeping you in an extended state, unlike my, oh, I put on a C-ring after pumping, stay in an extended state, dirt.
Don't do the voice.
Okay, guys, but that is actually keeping you in an extended state, but I wouldn't recommend it. And even the potential damage to like your lymphatic flow, I don't like that, but whatever, it's fine. Next, he says 2 minutes, 6 to 10 sets. Okay, so I like that. So he's doing somewhere between 12 to 20 minutes of pumping, building expansion sets, pumping up to a current max. So in inches of mercury, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9. Exit early if petechiae or other warning signs set up. So I love the fact that he says he's going to stop early if any petechiae, the little red dots, if you haven't seen my video on the red dots, check it out, start, or other warning signs. Like, that's brilliant. I mean, and maybe other guys imply this as well, but the fact that he has the wherewithal to know, okay, I need to watch out for trouble, I think that that's excellent. So once again, when it comes to the pressure, you have to figure out what works for you and what you can tolerate, guys. And so if you're starting off, you don't need to be pumping anywhere around 8 to 12 inches of mercury. You need to stay closer to like the 4 to maybe 8 range, I would say, for like the first month while your tissue is adapting and building up resistance. But that being said, I think the actual most benefit that you are getting is when you're getting into that 8 to 9 range. At least listed there, it looks like, we're talking about 3 sets or so, or maybe you continue past that, whatever it may be. But if you can tolerate it, I just think you need to do a warm-up set of a lower pressure and then gradually work your way up from there. And then next, he says 5 sets of 4 minutes. So now we're doing even more pumping, 20 minutes retention pumping. And then 5, 6, 6, 7. Maybe I'm not following this routine because it's like 3 hours and then like 20 minutes and then another 20 minutes. And so I don't know and I apologize, guys. Like, you guys know I'm not the sharpest tack in the box, but let's just look at this on its own. Once again, 5 sets, 5 minutes, 4 sets. I like that. 20 minutes of pumping. I think that's a good goal to have. But once again, if we're talking 5, 6, 6, 7, he's talking about retention pumping, so more so pumping for retention, pumping to preserve the gains. I think that's reasonable. And so if that's the goal, retention pumping, sure, very reasonable, rather than pumping for actual growth. And so there is a big difference there. But I do think when we're talking about pumping, total time does matter, and more is not more, because specifically of the impact that it can have on the vascular structures in your penis and the lymphatic channels. And so I would caution you with that. If you're pumping anywhere around 3 hours a day, I think that's far too much. Personally, I don't like recommending anything more than like 30 minutes a day of total pumping. So overall, what would I give this? It's kind of complicated, and I do like that it's bullet pointed, but I don't know that I'm exactly following what's going on. So I'm just going to give it a B, okay? I'm just going to give it a B. And last, we have another don't feature my name for sure. And so he says manual stretching, 5 sets of 5 minutes. Sometimes I do more throughout the day if I can. So 5 sets of 5 minutes means 25 minutes of manual stretches. I think that that's just past that threshold bare minimum of 20 minutes a day that is going to get you gains. And so if you're serious about gaining length, I think you need to do more than that. Now, when it comes to manual stretches, I don't think you need to do like timed sets. It's about just getting the total amount of time under tension as you can. And so it's unclear what you do in between your 5-minute sets. Maybe you just change hands, change positions. I think it's better if you just pull and hold for as long as you can until your hands get tired or whatever, the position gets uncomfortable, and then switch. I do recommend that you start a timer when you get going, so you can say, okay, I started a timer, and then, okay, how long have I been stretching? And you can look and see how long you've been stretching total. Then next he says 4 sets of 5 minutes. So I like this. I like this very much. He says total 1 set is a warm up at 6 inches of mercury, and then 3 sets of 7 to 8 inches of mercury. Okay. I think that's great. Once again, if you had more time, I would recommend 1 warm up set and then 4 working sets of about 5 minutes. And so you get 20 minutes of actual work on the tissue, work for lack of a better word. I do think the 7 to 8 range, I do think that's on the lower side. Okay. I mean, I'm just being honest, but first of all, how do you know your pump is calibrated? And you want to pump to what you feel comfortable doing and what is not causing you pain, discomfort, discoloration, petechia, etc. And so that is a good range. I definitely think you can grow even in the 8 range, maybe even in the 7 range, depending on how accustomed your tissue is to the pressure. So yeah, I think that's solid, man. And he says, sometimes I will soft clamp 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 10 minutes following pumping. I also think that that's fine. Soft clamping, I think clamping in general is one of those things that you have to be very careful because I think it's hard to get right, okay? There's a lot of people that do it, but I think if you're not careful, you have to be very cautious, in my opinion, of your pelvic floor. So, be aware of that. Then he says, rest on the weekend with tadalafil Saturday and Sunday. So resting on the weekend, I think once again, it's the weekend. If you're out living life, hanging out with family, to have a second job, whatever it may be, then obviously, yes, that's perfect. However, if you're just taking days off just to take days off with a routine where we're talking about maybe 40 minutes of work per day, I definitely don't think you need a rest day with this routine so far. I also don't understand why you would just take tadalafil on Saturdays and Sundays. And so if you haven't seen I have a whole medication playlist, guys, just check it out. But I talk about the different medications and the benefits that they can have in certain situations. If you're a younger guy, I would say below 30, you don't need to be on Cialis or tadalafil. You just need a good citrulline-based supplement. But if you are using that, I'd much rather you see something like you use a very low dose, like 2.5 milligrams Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so you have it like 3 days a week. And so you actually keep kind of a more steady level in your system rather than having it peak on Saturday and Sunday and then taper out of your system. Was thinking about switching to using a hanger, but not sure if it's safer to do manuals or if there's more value in using equipment. So the benefit of using equipment is I do in general think it's a little bit easier to control and to account for, and so it's more dummy proof for lack of a better word. But in my opinion, there's always a trade-off, okay? I'm very pressed for time, and so the thought of having to get the equipment out, tape up my glands and put on the contraption and then hook it into the device and then add the tension or the weight, to me that is not worth it with the limited time that I have to do. And so if you only have 20 minutes to do your manual stretches, then I think that especially starting off, you would spend the first 5 to 7 minutes just getting the device attached. And that would only leave maybe 15 minutes. That being said, if you have the ability to work from home or something like that, using a device could actually save you quite a bit of time because you could actually put on the device, put on the tension, do your work, do whatever else you needed to do, and then and your length work would be done at the same time. I've been doing this for over 5 years. I have been sent many devices by many different people that are very kind to me and send them to me, but I still just do manual stretches. And so that's what works for me. That's what I prefer. So I don't think you need to do it. It depends on what works best for your life. But he says, thanks and looking forward to your feedback. Thank you for your submission, bro. In general, I'm going to give this one, I like this one in general because it's pumping in manuals. It's done at a pretty consistent thing. Throwing in some soft clamping, I'll give it a B+, okay? I still don't think that's an A routine, but I'll give it a B+. So guys, that's going to do it for this one. Let me know what you think about this. If you want to be featured in one of these videos, go to my subreddit r/Hink, join the subreddit, and I'll post one of these. If this video does okay, all right, then I will make this a more regular thing. Probably at least once a month, we'll do a routine review submission, okay? But remember, guys, there's nothing wrong with self-improvement, but you are enough just as you are. I really appreciate you guys more than you know. Hope everybody has a wonderful day. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace and love.
Dr. Hink got the plug on the health, yeah. Got you thinking about your wealth, yeah. In his office, no stealth, yeah. Pinnacle of that below the belt, yeah. Checks and balance, he's managing. Working miracles, no damage. Got you covered, no panicking. Steady calm. In the clinic, no vanishing.